Welcome to Once Upon a Coin, documenting the ongoing history of blockchain and cryptocurrency. And as always, I'm your storyteller, Jason Cassidy. Today's story is about something that most cryptonauts take for granted, which is fascinating to me given just how important it is. It's the backbone of Bitcoin and a lot of other top cryptocurrencies, helping secure the network and providing a financial incentive for miners in exchange for their hash power. If you're the kind of person that likes to pull out the microscope and take a closer look at what makes crypto tick, then your path has inevitably led you to me here, right now. Get ready, because you're about to learn about one of the most important aspects of crypto that almost nobody talks about. And for those select few that do, they often only know half of the tale. This is the story of proof of work.
Sun cast a shadow, a digital line is coming over the mountain and over your mind. Double down your Bitcoin, hang on for the ride. We're moving into the future, one block at a time. One block at a time.
First off, let's establish what proof of work is before we dig in too deep. Proof of work is a consensus mechanism that is employed on Bitcoin and other top blockchain networks across the world. With Bitcoin, proof of work is put to use by incentivizing network validation. And this is accomplished by financially rewarding the most important network participants, the miners. Miners add computational power to the network via hash rate. And this in turn increases the difficulty of any one lucky miner finding the right hash to each new block being produced. Mining difficulty basically measures how challenging it will be to solve the complex mathematical puzzle attached to each new block of Bitcoin. The miner that is lucky enough to solve the riddle is rewarded with all the Bitcoin included in that block. This includes the block reward and those juicy transaction fees that come from all the transactions that are being processed on the network in the current block that miner is now attached to. The more hash power that miners throw at the network in hopes of being the lucky one that wins the next block, the more secure the network becomes. This serves as a positive feedback loop as Bitcoin was developed to be financially incentivizing to work cooperatively opposed to apart. Any attack that threatens the long-standing order of the blockchain can be thwarted with ease. This is because miners get to choose if they want to continue building on the current chain, no matter what a single miner tries to insert into a block. If a potentially malicious actor does something invalid or goes against the rules, miners can simply ignore it and continue building on the longest valid chain. Basically, someone who is up to no good would have to spend an incredible sum of money to disrupt the Bitcoin network for all of about 10 minutes. Because then a new block will be generated that would maintain the longest chain of valid blocks. This would leave the malicious actor on their own forked version of Bitcoin blockchain that no one was using, rendering the fake Bitcoin worthless and the entire effort futile. This is why people don't even bother trying to attack the Bitcoin blockchain, because the way it was designed, it was meant to render them absolutely penniless for even trying to take on the task in the first place. Now, if you're new to cryptocurrency, then you might be wondering what the hell I just said here. The underpinnings of such large networks can be pretty complex. So let's visualize the concept together so we get a better grasp of it all.
The right to add new blocks to a proof-of-work blockchain is provided to individuals who are willing to expand computational resources to solve cryptographic issues. The participants competing to add new blocks are referred to as miners, and the process is referred to as mining. Miners are the ones who execute proof of work. Miners use their computational power to locate a valid block when a piece of information such as a transaction needs to be added to the blockchain. This is accomplished by locating a hash that meets the network protocol-specific requirements. In cryptography, a hash is the outcome of a hash function. It converts any format or size of data into fixed size numbers. The protocol established a level of mining difficulty that is algorithmically adjusted so that the time it takes to obtain a proper hash averages about 10 minutes. Miners can sometimes locate multiple blocks that satisfy the protocol's requirements at the same time and split the chain in two. Well, because there can only be one accurate chain, the protocol must account for these circumstances. Miners will initially continue to mine on both chains, but once another block is discovered on top of one of the two prior blocks, that chain becomes the canonical chain, and miners are economically incentivized to discard the other blocks.
So now that we've got an understanding of what proof of work is and why it's so important to Bitcoin and other top blockchain networks, let's take a look at history, because it's rather compelling. The concept behind proof of work was first proposed by Cynthia Dwork and Monet Noor in 1992. They wrote a paper called Pricing via Processing or Combating Junk Email. And this got a lot of people talking about their novel way of getting rid of unwanted messages and dealing with denial of service attacks. Several years later in 1997, British cryptographer Adam Back integrated the idea into Hashcash. Hashcash was a proof-of-work system meant to deter email spam and denial of service attacks. The basic idea here was that email spammers were sending out so much email at such a small cost that even a slight increase in that cost could destroy their plans and kill off the entire business model. And this increase in cost, it came in the form of proof of work. Now, spammers would have to add a computational expensive string of characters to each individual email they sent out. As you can probably guess, for some of the most notorious email spammers out there, this was not a feasible option. The receiver could verify if the sender spent any funds in this manner to get that email to them, and if they didn't, they could easily filter it out if they considered it spam. With Hashcash, you had to pay to play. As the next century kicked off, signs that proof of work was going to evolve to become something really big could be seen. In 2002, developer Nick Szabo released a paper called Shelling Out: The Origins of Money, which once again touched upon the subject. Just a few years prior to this, back in 1998, Szabo had proposed a concept for an idea around a decentralized digital currency called BitGold. Now, writing a paper about a new digital currency and actually bringing one to life that works as intended are two very different things. With that being said, we can see that there are already some bright minds out there thinking in the direction that Bitcoin would eventually take a decade later. But even before Bitcoin could hit the scene, a legendary figure was busy laying the foundational pieces for what would one day become a digital revolution. In 2004, none other than Hal Finney himself took things to the next level. He didn't just propose a theory, he built a fully fledged prototype. And it was called RPOW, or Reusable Proofs of Work. Inspired in part by Nick Szabo's work from a couple years prior, Hal Finney's system addressed one of the core problems when it came to digital cash: double spending. Even though Finney's system never was meant to be more than a prototype, it actually did have the level of sophistication to get off the ground before Bitcoin did, if it had caught on with the masses.
We will next hear from Hal Finney.
I want to prove to you that I know a message that hashes to a given hash value using a SHA-1 hash.
Hal Finney would go on to play the role of Robin to Satoshi Nakamoto's Batman in the early days of Bitcoin development. Knowing where Hal's mind was going well before Bitcoin was even conceived, it's not too hard to see why Satoshi and Hal hit it off and became fast friends. The importance of Hal Finney to Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies goes well beyond his mining of Block 78 or his early work on RPOW, helping get proof of work into the minds of a lot more people. To fully appreciate this man's contributions to the world of digital currency that we all enjoy today, we really would have to take a look at his entire life story. Now, if you're thinking, Jason, this is just your cheeky way of trying to insert a promotional plug for the Hal Finney episode you're going to tell us you've created, well, then you know me too well. Because you're right, we absolutely do have an episode about the incredible and legendary Hal Finney, so once you're done with this episode, you now know what you gotta do. Anyways, this is a really great segue to the next part of our story, which brings us up to October 31st, 2008. This is the day that Satoshi Nakamoto introduced the Bitcoin white paper to the world, once again reintroducing the concept of proof of work into digital currency. And as soon as the calendar flipped over to the new year, the world got another dose of cryptographic goodness. On January 3rd, 2009, the Bitcoin blockchain was officially launched, with Satoshi mining the first 77 blocks. That's why I mentioned block 78, because that's where he got his friend Hal involved to decentralize things a little bit. From this moment on, a Cambrian level of explosion began to take place with blockchain. New cryptocurrencies were being created, most being cheap knockoffs or forks of Bitcoin that brought very little or absolutely nothing new to the table. One of these new coins that did stand out in the sea of cheap knockoffs was Litecoin. And this new currency was introduced to cryptonauts via the legendary Bitcoin Talk Forum on October 9th, 2011. Created by Charlie Lee, Litecoin was dubbed the silver to Bitcoin's gold and quickly found a niche when people were looking to go ahead and diversify Bitcoin profits into something else that was still cryptographic in nature. Being another proof of work blockchain, this little brother narrative actually worked great for Litecoin's marketing and superseded its technical value, as it didn't really offer a whole lot of new bells and whistles that Bitcoin didn't already have. However, there was at least one difference here that offered some separation from Bitcoin, but you'd have to look closely because it was buried under all the blockchain fine print. Bitcoin makes use of the SHA-256 algorithm, which is a hashing function developed by the NSA, or National Security Agency. And it's this that's been protecting your passwords for all the online services you've been using for many, many years now. Satoshi Nakamoto chose to use SHA-256 as his algo of choice, which is a statement in and of itself. But Litecoin, it did a U-turn here and actually decided to adopt the script algorithm. And it will be the script algo that will be handling all the hashing functions that took place on the Litecoin blockchain. One of the reasons for choosing the script algorithm is that, at least initially when it came to mining, it was very CPU and GPU friendly, but not so much when it came to ASICs. ASIC stands for Application Specific Integrated Circuit. And these are dedicated hardware in the form of mining machines that will go ahead and, at this point, mine just about any cryptocurrency out there. This meant the average Joe could actually mine Litecoin on their laptop. They didn't have to spend tons of money and learn lots of fancy tricks to set up a complex mining rig. However, over time, the evolution of the ASIC saw it become script compatible, which then greatly raised the barrier of entry for people to get into the mining industry on blockchains like Litecoin. Proof of work blockchains just kept hitting the market, with Ethereum being another great example of this, as it eventually took the #2 position behind Bitcoin. And as of this recording, that's a position that it's held for many, many years now. It doesn't really matter what era of cryptocurrency that we look at. Proof of work has been dominant for most of its existence. This has begun to change though in recent years, as there's been a push for a more green environment by governments, and that means that other options like proof of stake have become very popular. This has grown to become a very contentious topic, proof of work versus proof of stake. So of course, yes, there's going to be an episode out there that shows you all the benefits of proof of stake. And to be fair, there are other consensus mechanism models out there that have tweaked the proof of work model. I'm looking at you here, Solana. However, these options are still novel today for a reason. To sum it up, the debate between which consensus mechanism is better is likely to be one that goes on for a very long time. But there is at least one thing here that's not up for debate. Proof of work has been the dominant force behind the entire cryptocurrency movement, starting with Bitcoin on day one. And with any luck, it will continue to play a leading role in the final frontier of digital currency. I hope you enjoyed today's stroll down memory lane. Until next time, have fun and enjoy life, my friends. I'll be back soon with another incredible story to tell you.